Dreadful Seizures is the second full-length album from Mephitic Grave. This is a Hungarian death metal band, and one that formed several years ago under the name Moth as I believe a duo to start. And their style is very much an old school death metal sound, and I would say one of the more shambling and maybe even Finnish death metal influenced sounds, which still is conscious of the early contributions of Cannibal Corpse and various other more, I guess, both cut and dry, simple bands, but also ones that have strong atmosphere. And I think the best comparison to their sound overall is like Rotorvor, especially their kind of their demo period around 1992, and their debut album kind of applies too. Otherwise, Pertinence would be the mark for their first album. That was a very focused record that was just stuck on kind of one mode. It was slow and kind of doom-like in its steps, and it was very much like a tape level rehearsal room sounding death metal record. You know, I like that sound. I know not everybody does because they expect the utmost professionalism for whatever reason, but for me, a band should sound however they sound, and this is exactly what Mephitic Grave sounded like back in 2021, and I wasn't expecting a follow-up record so soon. Now, other comparisons for their sound, obviously nowadays they've improved the sound design a little bit and whatnot. So we'll cut to a track here, and then I'll explain kind of the way I see this album and its sound and the way its style develops. I think the thing to say about this record up front is that they cover a lot more bases, whereas the first record was very much focused. There's a little bit of thrash, there's a bit of doom, there's a wide variety of movements and types of riffs on here, and it feels like they're taking more of a tour beyond Abhorrence and Finnish death metal, and maybe seeing a little bit of the dirtier side of those things, maybe a bit of bolt thrower type movement to the drums, and I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that they've switched drummers. I didn't realize that, and it wasn't in my notes that one of the guitarists not plays the drums on this album, and his style is a little bit different than the previous drummer. Now, they've retained their style, even though this is a big shift, but his style is maybe more, maybe he listens to more thrash, maybe they're just going for a slightly different sound, but the band immediately feels a little bit more dynamic while also feeling like a basement level or a rehearsal room type of recording without entirely crumbling at the sound of itself. So it's a pretty solid representation of a lot of styles, and the performances are a bit sharper and more dynamic and presenting more range in the old school death metal zeitgeist. But where do we find the personality of Mephitic Grave? It's more so in the lyrics and the presentation, and they're not necessarily putting out their own exacting style just yet. It's just that this is a cool old school death metal record that has a lot. It has interesting taste in what it's covering. So for me, that was the appeal. Is like I like all of those things, and I like the way that they approach this. I think it's a very realistic render of a death metal band. If you've played in death metal bands or watched them, you appreciate a real sound when you hear it, and that's kind of that appeals to me these days. So if you're interested in an old school death metal record, this is an interesting thing to check out. I think if you're patient with it and you follow it all the way through, you'll find there's variety from step to step throughout, and a couple of surprises too. So I thought it was worth checking out. It comes out on January the 22nd, along with a couple other Memento Mori releases, and this is a pretty solid record. I gave it a high recommendation. I think that it is above average in most aspects, and also some of my taste factors into that recommendation as well, where I think more people should listen to realistic death metal sounds and real guitar textures and things like that, and not just plugins and whatnot. So take that into account, see what you think of it, and check out some of the songs in the meantime.